Welcome to Zevanet, the channel where news meets clarity. Every day, we bring you the latest headlines, global events, and trending stories from around the world, explained in a simple and engaging way. Whether it's breaking news, technology, lifestyle, or inspiring human stories, we keep you informed and connected. At Zevanet, our mission is to make complex events easy to understand, so you always know what matters most. The air in Tano North was heavy, not with the hum and dust that usually cloaked the town in late December, but with something far more suffocating: uncertainty. Political uncertainty had a peculiar way of crawling into everyday conversations, seeping through the cracks of family dinners, mosque gatherings, church services, and market stalls. It was no longer just about policies or parliamentary votes, it was about who might walk safely on the streets, who might dare to speak their mind, and who might vanish into silence after saying too much. At the heart of this unease stood Kwame Mensah, the constituency secretary of the New Patriotic Party, NPP. A man in his late 30s, with a sharp intellect and a reputation for being uncompromisingly loyal to his party, Kwame had found himself in a storm he never imagined would come so soon. He had always known that politics in Tano North was volatile, but he had believed that loyalty and integrity were shields strong enough to withstand the arrows of opposition. But things were changing. The whispers of threats against him had begun like rumors drifting through the corridors of the district party office. At first, he brushed them aside, convinced that these were just idle words tossed around by frustrated opponents. After all, politics in Ghana was filled with banter, bravado, and sometimes harsh insults. But these whispers had grown teeth, becoming sharp, biting words hurled at him in marketplaces and at political rallies. The name Gideon Buako, the Member of Parliament for Tano North, was being mentioned more and more in connection with the threats. Gideon, a powerful figure within the constituency and a man who had spent years consolidating his grip on the local political machinery, had long been both a mentor and a rival to Kwame. Their relationship was complicated. To the public, they smiled together on platforms, raising their hands in solidarity during campaigns. But behind closed doors, it was no secret that they disagreed, sometimes bitterly, about how the party should be run and who should hold influence. It was in this climate that the threats escalated. A local durbar intended to celebrate development projects had turned into a battleground of words. Supporters of the MP, emboldened by recent speeches, had shouted down Kwame's address, chanting phrases that could easily be construed as warnings: "Your time is up," and "We will deal with you." Even more unsettling was the viral video that surfaced days later. In the shaky footage, a group of young men, faces partially hidden, called for decisive action against the secretary. The video was quickly shared on WhatsApp platforms across the region, spreading fear like wildfire. Law enforcement could no longer pretend this was normal political tension. A police communiqué confirmed what many had feared: there were credible threats against Kwame Mensah's life. Security was tightened, patrols increased, and party leadership advised caution in all public appearances. Yet, even with these measures, the unease in Tano North grew worse. Between loyalty and betrayal. Kwame sat in his office late one evening, the low hum of a ceiling fan struggling against the heat. Papers were scattered across his desk, meeting notes, strategy drafts, and clippings from newspapers highlighting the rising tensions. He could hear his phone buzzing incessantly with calls and messages. Most were from supporters expressing concern, but a few carried veiled threats, often from anonymous numbers. His deputy, Afia Serwa, entered the room, carrying a folder. She was a sharp-minded organizer who had stood by Kwame through every election cycle. "They are saying we should postpone next week's constituency conference," she said, setting the folder on his desk. "The police think it's too risky. Some say Gideon's boys are planning to disrupt it." Kwame sighed deeply. "If we postpone, we show fear. If we go ahead, we risk violence. Either way, they win." Afia studied him for a moment before asking, "Do you trust Gideon?" It was a loaded question. Kwame leaned back in his chair, staring at the faded campaign poster on the wall, himself standing beside the MP, both smiling for the cameras. "I trusted him once," Kwame admitted. "But power changes men. And when a man begins to fear losing power, he can become dangerous." Afia nodded slowly. then we must prepare for the worst. Social media as a battlefield. The threats did not remain confined to physical spaces. On Facebook, Twitter, and WhatsApp groups, the battle raged with even greater intensity. Anonymous accounts circulated posts calling Kwame a traitor to the party. Hashtags questioning his loyalty trended within the region. But amid the venom, there were also voices of support. Some community members, elders, and even opposition figures spoke out against the threats, warning that if violence erupted, it would stain the reputation of Tano North for years to come. Still, the damage was done. The digital battlefield had spilled into the physical. Party youth wings clashed in heated debates, sometimes nearly coming to blows at local drinking spots. Families whispered fears about attending rallies. Traders at the market complained that politics was scaring away customers. The division was palpable, and at the center of it all was Kwame, once a unifying figure, now a lightning rod for conflict. The infiltrated meeting. It was at a private strategy meeting that the situation reached a breaking point. Kwame had gathered a small circle of trusted allies in a quiet guest house outside the main town. The agenda was simple: plan the constituency's next steps while avoiding unnecessary attention. But somehow, word leaked. Midway through the meeting, a group of young men burst in, shouting insults and accusing Kwame of undermining the MP. Though they did not physically attack, their presence was enough to send a chilling message: nowhere was safe. The police later confirmed that some of the intruders were linked to groups suspected of carrying out political intimidation. The incident made headlines, further heightening tensions. Law enforcement steps in. District Police Commander Superintendent Osei Boateng held a press briefing the following day. Flanked by officers, he addressed the media with a firm voice. "We have credible intelligence that certain individuals are planning to destabilize political activities in Tano North. We will not tolerate violence. We have increased security around key political figures, including the constituency secretary. Let it be clear, democracy will not be undermined by threats or intimidation." It was a bold statement, but many wondered if it was enough. The history of Ghana's political landscape was filled with promises of security that sometimes failed to materialize when it mattered most. For Kwame, it was a bittersweet relief. He appreciated the protection but resented the fact that it had come to this, that in his own constituency, he needed bodyguards just to walk the streets. A constituency divided. The crisis had exposed deep fissures within Tano North. While many NPP faithful rallied behind Kwame, others insisted he was exaggerating the threats to gain sympathy. Gideon Buako, the MP, publicly denied any involvement, stating at a press conference, "I categorically reject any suggestion that I or my supporters would threaten a fellow party member. We are a democratic party, and disagreements are part of democracy. I urge everyone to remain calm and respect the processes of our great party." Yet, behind the scenes, whispers persisted. Did the MP truly have no hand in the threats? Or was this a carefully orchestrated game of plausible deniability? Local chiefs and religious leaders called for peace forums, urging dialogue. Civil society organizations began monitoring the situation, warning that if unchecked, the conflict could spiral into violence during the next election season. The secretary speaks. Eventually, Kwame decided he could no longer remain silent. At a press gathering in the community center, flanked by loyal supporters and under heavy police presence, he addressed the people of Tano North. "I did not choose this path for myself," he began, his voice steady but heavy with emotion. "I chose to serve my party and my people. But today, I find myself under threat not because I betrayed anyone, but because I refused to compromise on truth and fairness." He paused, scanning the crowd. Some nodded in solidarity, others looked skeptical. "I want to make it clear, no amount of intimidation will silence me. Tano North deserves leaders who are accountable to the people, not leaders who hide behind threats. If I fall, let it be known that I stood for democracy, for justice, and for peace." The hall erupted in applause, though not all were cheering. Outside, a group of protesters shouted angrily, holding placards accusing him of dividing the party. The stage was set. The battle lines, both political and personal, were drawn. The broader implications. What was happening in Tano North was no longer a local affair. Political commentators across Ghana began discussing the crisis. Editorials warned that if threats and intimidation became normalized, it could set a dangerous precedent for constituencies nationwide. The NPP leadership at the national level was forced to intervene, calling for internal investigations. The opposition, meanwhile, seized on the moment, framing it as evidence of fractures within the ruling party. For ordinary people in Tano North, however, the politics of Accra felt distant. What mattered most was whether they could attend a rally without fear, whether their market stalls would remain open, and whether their children could grow up in a community not scarred by political violence. Waiting for resolution. Weeks passed, but the tension did not fade. Patrols continued. Meetings were held under tight security. Rumors swirled of further plots, while elders struggled to mediate. Kwame remained resolute, but even he felt the toll. His once lively office now felt like a fortress. Friends urged him to step back, at least temporarily. But stepping back would mean conceding to fear. As the next election cycle loomed closer, all eyes remained fixed on Tano North. Would it become a cautionary tale of how democracy faltered under the weight of threats? Or would it rise as a story of resilience, where the will of the people triumphed over intimidation? Only time would tell.